quick message before we start Funnel Reboot. Want to find out what people are buying to help them manage their performance and why they buy it. If you're interested in doing this and you're listening in February of 2022, please go to funnelreboot.com/stack. funnelreboot.com/stack. And to thank you for filling this out, we're going to be putting the results in a future podcast. If you leave your email at the end of the survey, we'll enter you to win a copy of books by some of the leading performance marketers in the field. Once again, funnelreboot.com/stack. And now let's go to the show.
Welcome to Funnel Reboot, the podcast that shares ideas on how to upgrade your lead generation. Here is your host, Glenn Schmeltzley.
Hey, Glenn here. Welcome to Funnel Reboot. We're going to get into mentoring in the marketing industry in this episode. Just after I remind you that I do this podcast for one reason. It's so you get new ways to upgrade your marketing skills. Speak up and let me know what's working for you. Comment on Twitter and Instagram at Funnel Reboot, or reach me personally through the website funnelreboot.com. So to set the stage for today's episode, we're going to talk about Homer's Odyssey. So Homer's Odyssey picks up right after Homer's other famous book, the Iliad. You know, that story, a group of kings in Greece who have been wronged because one of their prince's wives has been stolen and taken to Troy, join up to travel to the city to attack the Trojans for the honor of Greece. And in the meantime, the gods are playing each side of the battle like puppets on a string. It's about kings like Odysseus and his fellow countrymen who are way over across the ocean trying to get back home, and how the gods conspire against Odysseus as he is trying to find his way back to his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus. And it's the subplot that I love so much, where the two of them are challenged by the suitors that have come to take over the spoils of Odysseus' kingdom because they have long since declared him lost at sea. There is a person that Odysseus left in charge. There's two people, actually. One was Eumaeus, and another one, somebody he thought he knew, but it was actually his patron goddess Athena in disguise, taking care. And what she did, disguised as a man, was she befriended the young boy Telemachus, and she advised him on how to deal with the dilemma of all of these people who were trying to woo his mother and who were basically trying to take the inheritance that he was going to get all for themselves. Now, when Odysseus finally gets back home, this other person reveals themselves for who they are, the goddess Athena. But the name that they adapted in disguise was Mentor. And now, because of how Mentor gave Telemachus encouragement and advice, the word mentor has started to mean someone who shares knowledge with a less experienced colleague. And I wanted to bring on somebody today who's done this very thing in the marketing industry, specifically in the paid search industry. She is a perfect blend of left and right brain. So while she understands the technical challenges of pay-per-click marketing, she understands organizational behavior, how to begin your career and make the right connections and navigate your way through uncertain situations so that you can be a success. She was born in Nigeria. She now lives in the UK, where she contributes in many ways to the PPC community through the official PPC Chat podcast, PPC Chat Roundup, and through her own consultancy, MindSwan. Please join me in welcoming Anu Adegbola. Welcome to the show, Anu Adegbola.
Hi, Glenn. Lovely to be here.
Well, I'm really glad to have you. And I think we're on to a topic today that doesn't get talked about enough, but it certainly matters. And it's mentoring. And this is a field that I think we should have more, we should embrace more. I think it matters a lot. I think it's something that we can be a little bit more open about in the workplace. There's experiences that people have, and there's other people who want to get the benefit of those experiences. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. I think there's such a disparage, or like a bit of like a, tunnel vision when we, get into the, the workplace, and, it's really hard to marry that up. And as much as a lot of agencies have great training programs to train up somebody, just having someone who's senior, who's been doing this for much longer, to really, help you with the soft skills, the things that they will not, really go into in depth of training, in like a formal training forum. Those kind of things, I think, would be really, really important. It would have really helped me starting off in my career, just to make some, better decisions, to really, know the things to be serious about, the things not necessarily to take too seriously. Just having that, I would have definitely benefited a lot of that in the early years of my career.
Yes, I like how you've highlighted soft skills. We are in an interesting industry. I think you'll agree that pound for pound, marketers, digital marketers need it more than other people, because we're constantly confronting new things. Yet, when it comes down to it, things that involve interactions with people, there's really nothing new ever in that area. And so we can use a mentor, I suppose, to fall back on finding out how something that we're thinking of doing with another person, how that might, get a reaction. But what do you think about mentoring when it comes to the technical side of things? Are there times where, even though we're encountering something new, to the person who is the older person, it reminds them of a similar situation, and so maybe it's not completely new?
It's definitely for mentoring in the technical issues. I think that can be really important, because as we've heard, change is something that happens all the time. In with technical skills, things are always changing. Some things are already the same. I think one thing that I very much see that was about technically mentoring some of my teammates is, the tips and advice that you take from Google and Google platforms and all the recommendations that they'll give. And, someone new and someone who's trying to impress will be like, well, it's Google. Of course, I will take the recommendations they've got for me. When, it's someone with many more years in the field would be like, no, take everything with a pinch of salt, kind of thing. And as much as, it is about, you do want to take the Google recommendation and, that's what clients mostly think is the right things to do. It takes a level of experience to know that not all technical recommendations, not all the right ways of doing things that might have worked for one account will be applicable to your account. And just, knowing that there are multiple ways of getting things done, even in the technical space, even something as simple as Excel. Some people might find that a bit of a complicated space, and they're like, VLOOKUPs annoy me. And I'm like, well, there are other solutions to do what a VLOOKUP would do. And, just understanding that the one way that you don't understand doesn't mean you need to be like, oh my God, I don't get this whole industry. I don't get this whole platform. That's it. It's over. It's all about then finding out there's multiple technical solutions to solving a problem. And sometimes it does take years of us, people who have tried and tested different things to be able to tell the juniors, don't panic, find there's other ways. There's other ways to finding the solution. That is very much about technical mentoring.
Yeah, great point. If I'm thinking about a person who is younger and they are trying to find someone who can mentor them, I guess they could look in a few different places. There's people who are individual contributors. So when it comes to a person who wants a mentor, they have to look around, and I encourage them to look for their immediate manager, but they don't have to stop there. If there's other people, would you encourage people to look, for example, to an individual contributor or even somebody outside of their industry or company? Where would you, if you were thinking about trying to find that person, where would you look?
Yeah, and definitely depends on what type of mentoring that you want. If you're talking mentoring within the paid search world, yeah, it's definitely important to look for someone who has experience in the paid search world. If you're just looking for someone who has experience in the business world and knowing has held themselves together and has succeeded in their line of work, it's all about networking and finding where those people hang out and joining, peeking into different communities, online communities. There are many of them.
Yes.
And so these days I've always been the person in my career where I've gone, ask for what you want. It might sound like, you're like, people are not looking to be kind to you. People are after themselves. But if you don't ask, you never know. So how did I get into talking at a conference? I asked. I got the details of the dude who owned, who started a conference, Brighton SEO, and I was like, hey, Calvin, I'd like to start talking. This is the topic I want to talk to about. And he goes, okay, sure. I didn't wait for them to have a call out for pitching and everything. I knew what I wanted to do. I asked about it. Times when I wanted to, get resources to help, with the podcasting and editing stuff, I ask about it. I'm like, hi, does anybody on the Twitter chat, on our Twitter handles, does anybody know anybody that could help with this? You never know till you ask. Even mentoring, I've asked people, to follow people's, maybe private profile. Then, I come from this is why I want to follow you. I know it's, you're private, but is it okay that I follow you? And they go, yes. There are more yeses out there to be heard than people realize. I think, and I get it. You might get some no's, and cold pitching might be a little bit of a difficult pathway to navigate. But if you're trying to offer value, and if you're also honing in on the value that person has professed to want to provide. Because you get the people like, these heads of companies, they'll be like, oh, we are trying to do more of this. So call them out on it. Since, don't wait then for them to reach you. Go, hey, I heard that you're looking for these kind of people. Yes. I'm that kind of people.
Yes.
I'm that kind of people. Can we chat, and you call them up on their bluff, and people will like to respond on that. And
I think there's a second side to that street. If the person is being asked for their advice and they give it to you, I do think that the person who's asking needs to give due consideration to the advice and not just discard it, right, if they happen to disagree. And I think this sometimes comes out with people who have, let's say, a fixed mindset, right? So maybe they're not too happy with their situation, but they don't believe that they can grow. And the mentor maybe sees something in them that says, no, you can step on that stage. You can take that promotion. Then that person really is an obligation to shed that, sense of limit that they had. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of, just people thinking that the advice that's going to come to them is going to look a certain way. And I don't think we should, have that holding us back. But also realize that advice, I remember lately, one of the guys that I'm currently mentoring, and I was like, he asked me a question, and he asked me about this new role that was an opportunity to him. And it looked great. And even he sounded excited about it. And I was like, well, what do you want from me? Because honestly, I'm not going to tell you what to do or what not to do.
That's it.
And I'm going to tell you how to consider things, how to approach things. And that's what advice should really be about. Advising how to approach certain situations. It's not about do's or don'ts, because nobody knows what any other person should do. But you should give them this is what you should be prepared to face on either side of that decision kind of thing.
Very well said. And I know it sounds hokey, but you're making me think of all of the mentors that we see in movies. I'm thinking particularly of The Matrix, of Morpheus. I mean, he's always saying to Neo, I can't tell you to take that path, but I can show you the path is there.
Yeah. I can show you the path and and be confident that it's your decision and just make sure you're making the right decision for yourself. And legit, that is the best of what mentors do.
And here's another one. I guess if we get into the what is mentoring and what is it not, motivation, right? This is an important one because it needs to be clear for both parties that the mentor, well, what do you think? I'm not sure the mentor is there to motivate the person receiving the advice.
Yeah, I mean, motivation should always come from yourself, definitely. I think, and it's one thing that I feel most mentors would say, and I feel I've heard this on most, thought leaders, people doing thought leadership and speaking advices. You need to know your why. A mentor is not going to give that to you.
Correct.
No mentor, no one can give you your why, your reason for doing something, for what your motivation is. Like,
yes.
Your motivation is from you. People, you'll have to do it for, your financial security, for your family, for, this has been your dream when you're a kid. Anyone going out to do something because their mentor told them to? Oh,
right.
You're in for a world of trouble, I feel. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the only thing that a mentor can do, we have to remember that our words have weight. So I think it is possible to demotivate someone, if we're too harsh with them. If you think of, let's say, some athletic coaches that are notorious for, being tough. There's a fine line there. Demotivating someone can definitely be done if one is not careful. But you're right. All you're trying to do is fan that flame of inner motivation that they already should have.
So I guess the way I'll put it is also that, bad mentoring is when you demotivate somebody.
Yeah.
Like, definitely. I mean, because I don't think a mentor's job there is to affect the motivation at all. I think a mentor's job is to be a great cheerleader, but also always just be dependable for advice based on the person's decision. I told a friend as well, I was like, look, my job is not to tell you what to do or not to do, but if you make a decision and it doesn't work out, let's have a chat as to what we learned from it and how we take that. You don't go with the person's, the decision that didn't go well and start going, oh, well, this is what you shouldn't have done. This is how we could have done, and this is why you didn't get there because you didn't listen to me. And it's like, no. Your job is to go, okay, that has happened. Yes. What's the learning point? And how do you take that to the next experience? How do you move on? How do you recover quickly and move on to the next experience?
That's great. The dependability is, I think, it's more important than sometimes the substance of what is said. Yeah. And I think we also have to be mindful, and I'm speaking to people who, act as a mentor. It's important not to take that and become their manager, right? To become, you don't know the specifics of their situation. Again, I'm in the movie mode today, but there was another movie, and it was U-571, and it has Matthew McConaughey, and he is suddenly put in charge of a whole submarine. And his second-hand person comes to him, and remember, this is in a military organization, and he says, "You're the skipper now." And the skipper always knows what to do, whether he does or not. Right. You see that that's the problem that you can get into if you start to go too far into managing that person or directing that person. That's not your place.
No.
Because you won't know all the right answers. And you have to be upfront about that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think a mentor job like in that kind of way is giving them every preparation in the world to face whatever they're going to face. It's you're helping them to, not be scared to make a decision. You're helping them to, to know that, failure is not the end of the world. If it were to happen, to be humble when success happens. It's not about, like this is what's going to happen and this is going to be the A to Z of how you deal with that. It's literally, come what may, how do you handle the situation?
Yeah. And do you believe, I do, that sometimes it's about telling your story or something from your past that will help them see, all right, here's what may come?
Absolutely. That is hopefully what all mentors do. And a lot of my conversations with people would be, this was the mistake I made and this is how I learned from it. This was how my journey, this is why, I'm expressing my views in this way. I think it's important we tell people that, because it's not we should never be speaking from I guess this is how you should deal with things, because they've chosen you for a certain reason. There's mentor-mentee match that is important in terms of being able to refer to that person's experience in a way that it will help you. And that's why I said with mentoring, if you want a paid search, mentor, how to navigate the paid search world, speak to someone who's in paid search, because they need to be able to explain to you how their paid search experience could help inform how you deal with things. But if it's just like a business journey, it's that shared experience. I mean,
right.
If I want to, deal with the paid search world, I'm not going to speak necessarily, as much as it hurts me to say, I will speak to my dad. He's a doctor. His field is medical, It's
yes.
when I started getting into roles like, being in, a board and, business wise and, being, head of teams. He has tons of experience in that area. And we had a chat and he gave me point by point things to how to prepare. That's kind of just general business view. He was able to, get into involvement because he's got experience of that. So yeah, he shared with me those experiences. He shared with me times where, he was able to lead a team in interview processes. He was able to lead this. And so it made sense. His advice made sense because you have to then put it in real terms. You can say, okay, this is why I think you should do this because, for example, and you show your experience. And because examples bring things to life for all of us.
Examples are great. There's a responsibility, I think, and it certainly helps, let's say, when the person receiving mentorship has an example ready to go. So they go in prepared for that coffee or sit down and they say, here's the situation. And they try to boil it down. We all have many things. There's personalities, but you try to keep it into a little tight thing. So you basically form a small story that tells the person in a short period of time what you're dealing with enough that they can go into their own history and find something that is comparable. But there is that need. It's difficult. And I particularly have difficulty with it because I love to talk that we can go on and on and on. But it is important to just give the highlights.
Yeah. The highlights, the relevant bits, because you want them to go and remember. You don't want it to be just like, oh, okay, he talked a lot. What was the main takeout?
It was buried in there. Yes.
Yeah. You want to make sure they go out going like, oh yeah, I know exactly what the point that my mentor was trying to make.
You were mentioning before that, you share stories when you've made a mistake in the past. This is an important one. The ability for a mentor to give that humanity and, basically let their hair down, admit that there are times they've made mistakes, even if, let's say, by outward appearance, they're very successful now. Yeah. I think it's hugely important for that person to show some vulnerability. But I wonder what your take is on, do you share personal struggles? Do you share things that you're currently dealing with when it comes to saying what you think that person should do? the pandemic, for example, has caused us all to, have something that we all grapple with. Yeah. But are we to talk about those things, or are there any areas that you would advise caution?
I'd advise caution if it starts going to the space of demotivating the person. Yeah. Because as we talked earlier on, that's not what you want to do. You don't want to affect motivation. Sure, it's okay to say that, look, I'm finding this hard because that's true. Fact of life. That's fact of life. That is true. Never lie to someone and say that, oh, this is going to be so easy. Everything is a breeze for me. No, that's going to be absolutely wrong. But yeah, be factual about, look, these things are going to be hard. There's some things some days are harder than others even. But you don't necessarily tell them what your success path is and how your growth is happening in the moment, but tell them what you're trying to do to get there. Mm-hmm. Be like, look, some days are harder than most, and this is what I try to do. These are the people I reach out to. No, that's good. What your strategy is. Exactly. And, show your action. Show that you take, show the things that are hard and show that you're also taking your advice. You try to take your advice that you give, you give people advice to don't just be lazy. Don't just sit around waiting for solution. Try to be actionable yourself. So you talk about how you're being actionable in your life to, get out of the hard situations or grow in the hard situations that you're finding yourself in. Yeah.
I think that's great. I had a conversation once with an uncle you're reminding me of, where he said, despite the fact that the numbers are bigger, the dollar and the budget and the number of people on the team, he said, my issues are the same as your issues. They're a lot the same. And that's a very good takeaway, because it then admits that no matter which end of this you're at, both of you are dealing with struggles, and there might be something that you can share that helps each of you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was just thinking about, a chat that we're having like online on Twitter, like earlier this week, and about how, children are taught, if anything, be kind, and how that lesson is never not relevant ever. Right. It's not something that, teach them at the age of 5, but at the age of 10, they can forget about it. No, it's a lesson that at the age of 30, 40, 50, 60 is important to remember. There are going to be some lessons that, that we're going to learn at the beginning of our career that will be quite, prominent to implement at the beginning of the career, but will be important to never forget, no matter how long your career goes on for. So yeah, there are so many things that are relatable, no matter how long you've been doing things for.
And if you are not yet someone who has said yes to becoming a mentor for someone, what would you say to that person to help them understand that it can be a rewarding and perhaps even self-improving exercise to go through?
Well, yeah, you've said it. I mean, it's you're giving as much as you're getting. You're getting as much as you're giving. Yeah. From every mentor that I've spoken to who has been a mentor, the feedback is, wow, I learned a lot as well. That's literally I'm like, are you always like, wait, weren't you the sweat? They're like, nah, but because you just learn to, there's some things that we forget how to think of, and there's some lessons like, if anything, be kind, that we've forgotten about, that sometimes you need to be reminded, because that mentee will tell you what they have been told at the moment. And it might be a few things that, we've forgotten. You're like, oh yeah, that thing that I learned ages ago. And it refreshes your memory. It refreshes that side of things of how to do things. I think it's just always very important to never forget how difficult things were for us when we started, and just to try, and that builds up on that. It just helps us remind it, because as much as it's great to move on from bad experiences, and sometimes we just want to block some experiences because traumatic. I just want to erase that from my memory. Sometimes it's important not to. Man. I'm not saying bring it up in your brain every single day, but it's important not to forget, and to realize that you don't want other people to go through that. That's humanity. Don't be selfish with your experience, is what I say.
And remember that those experiences too, I find, particularly when you talk about, something raw, something that was unpleasant and you wish not to bring back up. But when you think of it later, first off, time will heal that. But the other thing is you are getting to see through this person describing the situations from your past. And now you're able to almost, as it were, it's like being in a theater and, you're the group that's acting out that play, but now you're in a different role.
Yeah. You're the audience.
And now you're watching.
The audience member. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what, I looked like there. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great time for self-reflection and growth. And self-reflection is something that we should always do. Everybody should do. And it's a good, easy way to go into it because everyone hears self-reflection. How do I do self-reflection? Yeah. Be a mentor. Be a mentor.
Talk.
It will help you. Talk about it. Talk about it to people and talk about it to someone who technically in your mind you feel can't even help you. Technically, you're there to help them on their part. Talk to someone because sometimes just letting the words out, reviewing the words out verbally makes you see in a very different and enlightening way.
Yeah, I'm remembering of a line, not going to get it perfect, but it's something to the effect of you can measure the character of a person by seeing what they do for someone where there would be absolutely no gain in it for them.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a great note to end on. Anu, if people want to find out about you and the things that you do through MindSwan or your activity in the PPC chat world, where can they go?
On my Twitter, I am very there frequently. So get me on The Marketing Anu. I'm also frequently on LinkedIn. If you want to add me as a connection, I love growing my marketing community. And if you want a mentor, genuinely send me a direct message. I'd love to discuss with you as to what that could look like and how it could help us both. Genuinely, it's so much, as we said, as much of a giving and getting situation. So happy to that. I definitely should plug my podcast as well. I'd be remiss not to. It's going really well, and it's the PPC Chat Roundup, a podcast. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, a lot of podcasting platforms. And there's a new episode today, which I found was very insightful. Like, even if you're not in paid search and you just want to hear discussions from loads of, I feel, people who should be mentors about how they've dealt with the past couple of years. I really appreciated what you shared with us about being a dad and just even an agency owner. Those kind of stories that people are willing to share. It's really great to hear because it'll touch somebody. People will be like, oh yeah, that's just like me, and okay, that's how you deal with that.
Thank you. But I do think that you're a person who particularly fosters this kind of giving. It is infectious. The more we give, what you said about, you're getting stuff back as well, but you start by giving. And when you do, the community is richer for it. So Anu, I want to thank you very, very much. And to the listener, I want to thank you for listening. I hope that this has maybe pushed you a little if you aren't currently helping out people, or if you are looking for help and you're not quite ready to ask someone. I hope this has given you that impetus to do so. And I hope that you heard something today that you can use to make your funnel even better.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter @Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.